Good morning and welcome to a special edition of DC Today. I'm Del Walters. Today we ask and answer one simple question. What is it like to be Black in America? In this case, from 5 different perspectives. I first realized that I was Black when Dr. Martin Luther King died. There was a palpable sense of almost like the air being let out of a collective balloon. I was young, but I remember the expression on my father's face, on my mother's face when he died. And I also remember my father disappearing. Most kids at that age want their father to throw a football with them or teach them how to play basketball. My father went off to fight the civil rights movement. And at that time, we became the kids that were going to integrate in my hometown. So we were the first Black kids at a private school that most of the kids never even knew anybody Black. So I learned that I was Black because I was different from them. So when we got there, I remember my first act of discrimination was the person that was in charge saying, well, we're going to have to test you kids to make sure that you fit in. We may have to hold you back. And then when we tested above their expectations, we became the prodigy kids. And I always remember in the back of my mind just thinking, dance, monkey, dance, because once you conquer low expectations, it's like you have to fit into a bubble that is almost impossible. You have to overachieve. And that's the first time that I realized I was Black.
I always identified with my African roots, with my African nature before I knew what Black was, because I grew up in an African household and I came from Cameroon. So it wasn't until elementary school when, you playing with your friends, white, Black, Hispanic, but you're all in the same neighborhood. We grew up on the south side of Houston, Texas. So when we traveled outside of our neighborhood to places, it could be a park, Chuck E. Cheese's, whatever. When it was outside of our neighborhood, I noticed the change in how people perceived me and how people treated me, even as a child, even at 3, 4 years old. Kids from outside of our neighborhoods, predominantly white, wouldn't play with us. And that became sort of the history of my early childhood years, where you notice the clear difference between how you get treated in your community and how you get treated outside of your community.
I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I was born in a pretty diverse area, Prospect Park. It's easy to see differences because, one block you're hearing Hispanic music, you're hearing Spanish, another block you're with Hasidic Jews, and another block you're with Asian. So I kind of always had a feeling of race, especially since elementary school, going to public schools where everything is split up. My classes, if I could recall, my classes were pretty diverse in elementary school. So I've always known I was Black, or just different from, there was a difference that exists. I won't say I always known I was Black per se, but I always knew that there was difference in people's households.
I first realized that maybe other people didn't like the fact that I was black when I was looking at an old issue of Ebony magazine. My parents had this stack of old Ebony magazines, and I would just thumb through them. I can't remember how old I was, maybe 5, 6, something like that. And I remember seeing a picture of a gentleman. He was standing in front of a wall, and on that wall was scrawled the N-word spelled out. And you know what? I was young. I don't think I could really read at that point. But I knew there was a connection between the man standing in front of that wall and the word that was scrawled on that wall and the emotion, the sadness that was on his face. So I took the magazine to my mom and I said, "Mommy, what word is this?" And then that's when she told me about the N-word. And I connected the idea that if this man is an N-word, then someone out there thinks I'm an N-word too.
I have 2 cousins. They live in West Bloomfield, Michigan, and they're the more privileged side of the family. So we would go see them in the summertime, and mostly white neighborhood. You can count the amount of black people in their neighborhood. And I would go over there and I'd be like, wow, y'all don't feel uncomfortable being over here? I don't know what made me say this, because at this point, I didn't really know much about race. I just knew they looked different from everybody else. They was like, nah, this is pretty normal. We friends with the white guy across the street, and my best friend is white and all of this. So I didn't pay it any mind. So they would come back with us in the second part of the summer, come to our side. And they would ask me questions about certain people on the corner, and are those thugs, and are they selling crack and stuff like that? And that was the first time I realized that because of what they see in their neighborhood, that, there's a difference between white and black, the stature and, society, the neighborhoods, the way you think. And that's also the first time I learned that just because you're black, that doesn't mean that your experiences are the same. The way your way of thinking is the same. So that's probably the first time I realized that there's a big difference, even though he's a human being, I'm a human being, because of our skin color. There's a big difference between, our experiences in life.